Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. Look at you all out there living your lives. It's fascinating. Do you know what fascinates me? That fascinates me. Watching people. I like to people watch. Not in like a creepy way, with like binoculars or, a telescope. Though I do kind of wish I had a telescope, because my neighbour's garden, well, it's not my neighbour's garden, so it's weird. It's like the back of my house, weird interlude to begin with. The back of my house backs onto what is essentially like a sheltered housing for elderly people and protected people. And there is a rose bush, which is just at the back, and there is a very large rose, which just sticks up above the rest of the hedgerow. And yeah, I kind of wish I could see it closer. But I can't get closer to it, because to get to it I have to go through a bunch of people's gardens. And I ain't going to do that. And I'm not that kind of wanderer. When I wander with permission. I try to keep hold of that. But you know what really fascinates me? And that will actually get to the point of that. Welcome, guys. It is the last episode of the year. We've done another year of Yelling at Concrete podcast, which results in, I think, 100 and... I'm going to double check the figures. 176 episodes. We're now up to 176 episodes. It's actually September when I'm recording this. It's the end of September. We're about to go into October. I get earlier and earlier with my planning and management throughout the year. Try to improve on things. Try to keep going. And we've managed to finish in September this year, which is insane, right? For you guys, it's November. Who knows what has happened? Who knows what this podcast will line up with within the world out there? Maybe I'll have to cancel it. Maybe I'll have to delete it. Maybe I'll have to shift it to 2022 as the initial one of the year. But because it's the last episode of the year, I like to get a little self-reflective. And I like to get, more so than I usually do, and I like to get a little nonsensical. So we're going to dive into some nonsensical self-reflection, which, as you do. So something which fascinates me, and I have been fascinated by it for a very long time. And by the way, this is not a plug for my calendar, which is on pre-order. In fact, it's not even on pre-order anymore. It's just available to buy. But I'm fascinated by people who identify with animals. Right? By which I mean people who put their entire lives around the idea that they share a common strain with an animal in some capacity, in some sense. You see it all the time, right? You see it a lot. It's like, oh, well, I'm a dog. I'm a cat. I'm secretly a dolphin. I like, and they'll cover their houses in it. They'll cover their houses in dolphins and what is the word? Like those monkeys, spider monkeys, and they'll just really embrace that idea. Like, I truly identify with these animals. I truly identify, and I find that fascinating. And now I can already feel you. I can feel you eyeing up my right arm and going, "Well, Graham, you are a massive hypocrite." To which I say, "What?" And they go, "Oh, well, you on your right arm happen to have a very large tattoo of a bear, and you've also nicknamed yourself the Bear a fair few times, to a point where it caused confusion between the LGBT community and people who watch the show, who just assumed that I was gay. But no, I just like bears. But I feel, I'm not downplaying or saying it's bad that anyone does this with animals, by the way. But I do find it interesting. I find it interesting from many points of view, and we're going to get into a little bit of why that. So I should probably explain why I have a bear on my arm. So I have a bear on my arm for a couple of reasons. And it's not that I identify with bears on an emotional level. I think I want to lay that out. I think this is the difference between myself and other people when it comes to my interest in bears. It's like, I like bears. I appreciate them as animals. I think they're hilarious. I also think they have a lot of human characteristics. But the reason I have them is because it was a nickname for an old friend. And for a very long time, I was down the lines of, I want to meet or see a bear, and it became kind of a goal for me to kind of go out into the world and see a bear in the wild, which I managed to do. Well, not in the wild. But I managed to go. I went to Canada, hence the Canada t-shirt. That's actually just coincidental. Didn't even realise I was going to be talking about Canada. And I went to see a bear, and it was more of an achievement thing than anything. So it's symbolically achieving for myself. But also, people... What gets me is people who represent themselves with animals because of specific traits. Right? And it'll usually just be one trait that'll happen. You know, it'll be... Especially with birds, it's usually elegance. People associate themselves with elegance or freedom. They like the idea of flying, and it's lions and tigers, and it's the strength, isn't it? They always want to be strength. Or you get a lot of over-amped gym goers who really want to be lions and tigers and apes, and they want to be gorillas and silverbacks and all these big lumbering beasts. And people look at my bear and they're like, oh, well, it's clearly you. You do exactly the same, right? You must see yourself as a strong individual. I'm like, no, honestly, because in my head, I don't associate bears with strength. I associate bears with clumsiness and hunger and sleep. And I don't sleep a lot. So it's going to be clumsiness and hunger, which I associate myself with bears with. And it's true. You know, when I think of bears, I think of them as, you know, they're fairly resourceful. They survive for a very long time. And they don't have really close family units apart from the mothers and children. And that's, you know, a fairly reflective view of my view of the world. And yeah, it's less about me thinking that I'm a bear and more just appreciating them as animals within the world, and of course emotional connections to other parts of my own life. But some people really identify with animals, especially I think the lion one always sticks with me. People really love like lion tattoos and lion shirts, and they want to be the king of the jungle, because that's the trope, isn't it? It's king of the jungle. Gorilla's the same. He's the one in charge. They're the ones going out and doing the things. Or lionesses, because they're the king, like queens of the pride. And people really want that. They want that strength, and they want that boldness, I guess, or maybe that control. And I think whenever I see that, I find it interesting as well, because like I said, like for me, bears don't represent strength. And I even remember when I got the tattoo. So the tattooist herself drew it. Her name's Olga. She's very good. Drew it, and I said, I don't want it to look angry. That's my main thing. I don't want it to look angry. I don't want it to look violent in any way. I'm not claws and teeth, none of that. I just want a bear. I just want a happy little bear just chilling out. And the owner of the tattoo shop just laughed at me like, but bears are angry. I'm like, no, bears are defensive. That's their thing. But they're not always angry. Whereas people pick animals based on the trait they want to expose out into the world. And that's the things with lions and lioness and gorillas and all that, is they always pick like volatile representations of them. It's like, yes, they're sturdy, they're strong. And I think that's fascinating, because to every individual it's different. And when I look at those kinds of drawings and those kinds of things, what I see is a massive insecurity, because people want the idea of their strength to be projected, and they want their strength to be projected so you don't focus on the things which they see as weak. And I can't help getting past that as a view of the world and how people do that, which is the same when you see people who like really want elegant animals, or animals which they deem as elegant, and they say, oh yeah, well look at these, and I can really relate to that. Or gentle animals. And it's whatever personality trait you want to push out into the world. And I'm no different with my bear. You know, my bear is, as I said, hungry and clumsy, and that's something which I pretty much project into the world. I hate the idea of intimidating someone out there. I like the idea of being seen as kind of a buffoon, and I think, you know, to some extent I am. I remember when I was much younger, this was like about when I was about 16 or something like that, I went to a gig and someone told me that I was intimidating, and I kind of took offense to it. Like, apparently I'm intimidating, and I don't see myself as intimidating, because I know me, and I know that I'm just, you know, a cozy buffoon who doesn't really know what he's doing and just mumbling my way through life. That's how I know me. So I try harder to not be intimidating, which is hard to do because I'm 6'2". And what I realised later in life was the fact that I was intimidating was because she was quite short, and I'm 6'2", and at the time much heavier, and, you know, dress a lot of goth and all that kind of stuff. And that's a barrier to people who you know, not people which I want to be intimidated, but it's a representation to say, hey, yeah, we're not in the same, not in the same category, guys. We're just chilling out in the same different fields for these sheep. as it were. I'm sure people who are into musical genres won't appreciate me describing them as sheep, but everyone has their own genres which they lead into. There's a robin in my garden in the end of September. This is all fallen into place. And now I think about it, the rose over there is another good example of it. You know, it's over there, and you always see that picture online of that tulip which sticks out above all the other tulips, and it's a photograph which has been mass reproduced with the tagline of "Stand out from the crowd" and all that kind of thing. And that rose is no different. It's bolder than the rest. It just stands out, and it represents itself to say, "Hey, come look at me. I'm a rose," and that kind of thing. But what I wanted to discuss was this idea, I guess, of people wanting to represent strength. It's a strange one for me. For me personally, I don't know about anybody else, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But I never really want to represent strength. At most, I want to represent calm. And I think I do represent calm, which is why in public places, people tend to think I work there, and also seem to know what I'm doing, even though I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. I just look like I know what I'm doing. And it's because I've been confused so many times. My resting face now is just one of kind of subtle satisfaction with whatever's going on. I'm just like, yeah, I'm here. We're watching the world go around. But people want to project this idea of strength, and I can't really understand why, right? I can't really understand why. I understand it from a perspective point of view of wanting to hide insecurity and hiding the things which they see as weakness, or perhaps been, bullied or, called out for weakness. If I take a stereotypical guy with a lion tattoo on his arm and biceps and all that kind of stuff, that is a big projection of strength. It's a projection of I'm hard, I'm intimidating, I'm gonna, I'll mess you up if you mess with me, don't question me. And I'm sat thinking, well, what are you covering? At what point in your life did somebody tell you that being weak was bad and that you can't have anything which isn't this level of toxic masculinity, that you need to project this? But also, why do people want to be king of the jungle? What's interesting is I just looked up the last video from last year, and we were on about being royal, and while I never really want to be royal, and people love the idea of being the king or the queen or in charge of everybody, or just having people bow to them. It's like, yeah, look at me, I'm on top of the pile, it's top of the food chain. I'm like, why? Wouldn't it be better? And this is a hypothetical for you, right? Wouldn't it be better if we weren't these animals out there with definable traits, right? And I'll explain what I mean, because I just realized I just left that off in the end. So I'm not talking about like jellyfish. Though jellyfish do have definable traits. And I'm sure someone out there reciprocates with a jellyfish. But I'm glad I said reciprocates there. But what if, right? To me, the bigger appeal, the appeal isn't in being something physical. The appeal would be in being something legendary. Right? You've got all the things in the world. All of them. Like, anything we've created, anything the human imagination can come up with. There's boundless things like goblins and dragons, and I'm sure there's people who think they're dragons, and I'm sure there's people who think they're goblins, trolls. I've been watching a lot of Tales of Arcadia, so that's why I'm going down this fantasy line. But also other things. I went to a very good show with Richard Daniels, who told me about a monster who living in a forest somewhere near Lincolnshire, and that was fascinating. And again, those kinds of things, something mythological. And to me, that holds so much power than any physical show of strength that you could ever think of. Something people would write stories about without knowing the thing, right? And the best example you can obviously come up with is probably Bigfoot. Right? Bigfoot doesn't have to try to be Bigfoot. Let's face it. There's been like 20 photos of Bigfoot maybe in a lifetime. It's probably even much less than that. But there's been like 20 photos, maybe a few videos of Bigfoot. Bigfoot doesn't have to try. Bigfoot is just out there in the forest doing their thing. And then people come along and they make them legendary. They make them this mythos. They tell stories about him. That I met Bigfoot, I was doing this, and I was going through my camp, and he was just there in the morning. Or I've met Bigfoot, I found his droppings. Like, that's a level of craziness. You don't walk around, like you would be walking around in a forest. I say forest, I don't know where lions live. It's clearly my education is just failing me. But you're walking around and you find a pile of like lion crap. You're not really going to care Like, you'd be like, oh, okay, there's a lion about, we'll look for the lion. If you came across Bigfoot's droppings, you would freak the hell out. You'd take them home in a baggie. You'd be showing people, I found Bigfoot's droppings. Or like a footprint. Like, it's cool to see a lion footprint, but if you had Bigfoot's footprint, that's insane. You found Bigfoot's footprint. And there's this level of, like, unknown to it. Same with the Loch Ness Monster, right? Like, nobody knows whether it's real or not. Nobody. It's just a myth. It's a myth or a legend. Like, we've got that one grainy photograph, and then since then, literally, I imagine millions have been spent on people researching the Loch Ness Monster. And it's just like, why haven't we got people who are more adhering to that? Why don't people want to be mythological and just leave that sense of unknown everywhere? Again, that's as well. If your whole goal of when you're having, you're looking at animals and you're like, well, I want to be the alpha. What's more alpha than those guys? What's more alpha than these beings which we know nothing about because they have left so much grey area that we've ended up just telling tales about it, that we filled in all the blanks to a point where, to some people, it's scary. It's scary, the idea that there might be this giant ape creature somewhere in a forest, or there might be a giant, dinosaur living in Loch Ness that they're going to have to contend with in some way, and they have to deal with. That's way more scary than a lion or a gorilla. Like, yeah, those things are scary, and I'd never want to mess with them. But at the same time, you'll be walking through a forest, and you mention Bigfoot to some kids, they will freak out. Right? They will understand the level of fear which comes with uncertainty. All I'm saying, maybe this is what I'm saying. I'm not even saying it's just questioning why people are doing it. I'm just saying you're picking the wrong animals. You're picking the wrong beings to back and get tattooed on you. Maybe I should get a Bigfoot tattoo just on the inside. I got a bear on the outside, so that's my physical, like, showing off to the world. And on the inside, I can just throw Bigfoot. And I feel like that just appeals to me more. It appeals to me more to be an abstract concept of what's going on, and have people worry, not worry, but be interested enough that they're trying to find out more. And I guess that's what I do with anything I do, any of the work which I produce. We've said this time and again, and I will stop mentioning how bad I am at advertising, but my whole idea and whole ethos to creation, right, is very much Field of Dreams. It's very much, if you build it, they will come. If you start creating something and you start producing something that you are passionate about, you have an interest in, and you enjoy creating, then eventually people will adhere to it, and they will look it up, and they will find out about it. And all it takes is enough people to be interested in that topic, and interested in the idea, to form ideas around you to the point where you don't even need to advertise, because enough people are sat there waiting for it. And as soon as you kick it out, they'll go, oh my God, show more people. You say it's pushing anticipation, just teasing the world out there, which I apologize to my own audience that I do this, but it's how I work. I've never wanted to throw my work out there and advertise and say, hey, this is great, this is the best thing you're ever going to read or see, and look how talented I am. No, fuck that. Let's hang it on a tree in a forest and confuse some people and make them do the hard work. And I feel that you enjoy it more. This is directly to you guys. You enjoy it more when I do that. Because I do. I enjoy media which I have to look into a little more. So recently I went to see The Green Knight as well. This is how we'll also round this out. I went to see The Green Knight at cinema, and it restored my faith in cinema. For a while I've had this feeling in my head of nothing good is coming out of cinema recently, and apart from independent films. And Green Knight is it's in the way of that, because it came out to the cinema. It's quite a big blockbustery film, and it restored my faith because it left so much abstract and so much trippy that when people who are used to mainstream cinema will watch it, and they probably won't like it, or they'll be confused by it and they're not sure what to think or whether they should like it or not, because I'm fed up with cinema and shows and music which just hand feeds you every single concept within the media and says, hey, do you see this? Well, it's about this, and it's here's this symbol, like heavy-handed symbolism for death. And you sit and think, well, why aren't you even trying to challenge an audience anymore? And it's because people want their money's worth, and they want to know they've spent the right thing on the right thing, and so they want everything laid out. But when you track back to it, there is way more power and way more respect in being that abstract, being kind of vague, and just letting people interpret between the lines. And I think that's something we need more of. I've no interest in being the silverback, or the lion, or the venomous boa, or any of that, or being elegant gazelles. I'm trying to think of animals off the top of my head and not doing very well. I probably should have made a list of animals. Owls. I've no interest in any of that. I have interest in looking at the weaknesses of those animals, like the bear and its clumsiness and how it struggles to find food sometimes. But I got way more interested in being some sort of mythos, which is hard to do when you do a podcast where you talk about yourself for half hour, every week. But it's something to consider for 2022, definitely. I'd love to know what you guys think. I'd love to know what your favourite animals are. I'm curious as hell. I wonder what they say about you. Like behind your back when they're in the forest. They'll be talking about you. But until then, thank you for joining me for another year. It has been 2021. We've made it through another year. Who knows what winter holds or 2022 holds. Hopefully we'll still be going. I have no intention of stopping. I enjoy doing this. But on that note, I'll talk to you guys later. And have a great winter. Bye.